Hello and welcome to the Volunteer and Community Supporter Induction for the Church's Conservation Trust. This is both an induction for new volunteers and community supporters, but also a refresher for those who've been with us for a longer time. It would be useful for you after listening to this induction to engage with the Volunteer Handbook and do the safeguarding training and have a look at the general risk assessment, which you can also find on the resources page. By joining as a CCT volunteer, you're joining over 2,000 volunteers and 80 staff who support over 350 churches nationally in England. And we have a wide range of volunteer roles. Some are based in churches and some are based in our regional and national office. Some even are at home. So examples of the roles that volunteers do for us, we have people visitor welcome, stewarding, we have people engaged with fundraising or running events. There's people involved with gardening. There's tons of things that you can do to help out the Church's Conservation Trust. And the time and skill provided by volunteers is estimated to be the equivalent of over £1 million every year for the CCT. And honestly, I think it is a lot more. You do so much for us. We wouldn't be able to survive without volunteers opening the churches and caring for the churches. So this induction is to provide volunteers with an overview of our organisation, what we do and why, and we hope you will have that understanding by the end of this session. As part of our volunteer handbook, you will see a reference to our shared ways of working, or values and behaviours. This is a set of guidelines which outlines how we as an organisation will support you, our volunteers, and what we expect in return. It also gives a summary of who we are as an organisation and what we do and how we do it. So please have a look in your handbook for a copy of this. We want all our volunteers to feel that they are part of a national team, that you're based at a site, and we encourage volunteers to communicate with each other, share stories and advice. We organise a national annual event, regional events and training opportunities which aim to promote just this, such as our National Volunteer and Supporter Awards evening in June. In this induction, we will cover our history, what we do, who's who, where our funding comes from and how we spend our money, the ways we communicate with our volunteers, a little bit about our strategic plan, and health and safety and safeguarding. A little bit about our history then. The 1960s were a very challenging time for historic churches, with historic buildings sometimes seen as an impediment to progress rather than a benefit to society, and many were falling into disrepair and were threatened with demolition. That wasn't, of course, a new thing. Historic country houses had been threatened with disrepair, and a national trust had been set up to look after a few of them and save them for the nation. But no such formal mechanism existed for caring for churches where parishes felt they could no longer afford to keep going. And if it hadn't been for the commitment of local communities, such as yourself, and national campaigners like Ivor Bulmer Thomas, who ended up being our first chairman, many of the historic churches might have been lost forever. As a result of their campaigning, the Church's Conservation Trust was originally established in 1969 as the Redundant Churches Fund, a unique partnership of church, state and charity, which it still is. The first church to come into our care was St. Peter's in Edlington, South Yorkshire, which is pictured, and I'm happy to say we still look after that today. In 1994, we were renamed the Church's Conservation Trust, with the logo refresh in 2019, which you can see on the right, which is a more stylized version. So we started with the Redundant Churches Fund with a pelican pecking its breast, and we now have a stylized arch as our logo. What is it that the Church's Conservation Trust do? Well, the work of the Trust is wide-ranging and far-reaching. We are the operator of the third largest heritage estate in charitable ownership in the UK, you might be surprised to hear. We also have an international award-winning reputation in heritage conservation and regeneration, and all of the churches in our collection are listed, mostly Grade 1 and Grade 2 star, and some are scheduled ancient monuments. We have saved and continue to save and care for over 350 churches vested in us by the Church Commissioners of the Church of England, repairing the damage from sometimes years of neglect and working with local communities to bring them alive again. So to achieve this, we need to engage and inspire individuals and communities so that together we can conserve, enjoy and promote our fine collection of historic churches. Working with over 2,000 volunteers, welcoming close to 2 million visitors and donors, we aim to create innovative partnerships to ensure our churches are open and will thrive as cultural, social, tourism and educational resources. We also encourage young visitors to the churches with school visits and family activities. The key is recognizing what these buildings can contribute to modern life, whether as a heritage gem to discover during a walk in the country, a place to meet or learn, a cultural venue, or a destination to visit as part of a day out. Some of our churches have got innovative uses. For instance, we have a circus school in one of our churches, and in Sandwich, one of our churches, you can find fantastic vintage furniture and clothes and books. Importantly, though, our churches remain at heart complete. They'll remain consecrated and are available for occasional worship, and their spirit, tranquility, and sense of place remains intact. We are their guardians, charged with protecting over 1,000 years of history and keeping them open for people to use. And of course, it is different in every community. You know best what the churches might need, what your community might need of that church, and you are our eyes and ears on the ground. First impressions also count. Think about the value of a church that is looked after and that looks cared for. That is the stuff that you do. Visitors are likely to tell many more people when they've had a positive experience with us, and that is essential in the work that you help us with. I mentioned we are the operator of the third largest heritage estate in charitable ownership in the UK, and I thought you would like some figures to back this up. So after the National Trust and English Heritage, you can see in this table, the Churches Conservation Trust comes third. So the number of sites that we look after is roughly similar, so over 500 for the National Trust and over 350 for us. But then if you look below that, the income lines are vastly different. And then if you look below that, when it comes to staffing, that's where it really starts to become clear as well. Where National Trust has 11,000 staff, we work with 80. Where they work with 53,000 volunteers, we work with around 2,500. So we always know that volunteers are essential for heritage, but in some organizations more than others, you are what makes the difference. You are the reason that we are able to keep our churches open. We thank you so much for that. I promised to tell you a little bit about who's who, and this slide shows you our senior leadership team. Our current chief executive is Greg Pickup, who started in 2022, and he's supported by a volunteer board of trustees. Liz Peace, CBE, is the board chair. Greg is helped by his senior leadership team with a director of operations, a director of conservation, a director of finance and commercial, and a director of communications and fundraising. These are our national teams. Our senior leadership team oversees different national teams. So the Director of Operations overlooks people and culture, community engagement, learning, and the heads of regions. Our Finance Director overlooks finance, but also compliance and governance, which is a big job as we are an arm's length organisation, which means that, for instance, we have to be audited every year. And our Communications Director also looks after our membership. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about our regional setup. We've split up the country into 3 different regions: North, Southeast and West. And the reason is that they all cover roughly the same amount of churches, so about 120. And every region has the same staff setup. So there's a head of region, they're supported by a business support officer, and you might hear from them when it comes to filling in certain paperwork for event bookings. But most importantly, your CCT contact will probably be either a lead local community officer or a local community officer or a site officer, and they are your conduit back into the organization. Because every region only has one state officer and one conservation project manager, you can understand that the workload is quite high for them to be looking after 120 churches. Your local community officer likely will have a portfolio of between 20 and 30 churches, which means that they're often on the road, but that you might not see them every week. Find out how it's best to get in touch with them, whether they prefer email or a phone call, and realize that either they work from home or they're in their car, probably, doing the rounds. Because we have no real regional offices. The photograph you see here below is our new national office in Northampton, which is next to our St. Peter's Church, and the ground floor is the Old Black Lion pub. So we are on the first floor, and that is suitable for some hot desking. But for instance, the North region doesn't have a regional office. The West region has a regional office in Bristol. I'd like to give you a brief insight into our funding. We are extremely lucky that we are part funded by the government through the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, DCMS, and the General Synod of the Church of England via the Church Commissioners. As you can see here, 4.6 million of our previous financial year's figures came from that core funding. This means that for the rest of our operations, we are reliant to bring in more income. So we have been able to bring in non-statutory grant income, grants from listed places of worship, and importantly, you will also see the amount of donations and legacies and earned income. And this is where you are instrumental. Not that we want you to give us donations and legacies, but the work that you do and the work that you help us with actually enables people to fall in love with the church, to get that emotional connection. And that causes people to think, actually, I care. I want to see this place thrive and leave donations and legacies. The earned income is something I'll explain at the next slide. Earned income is where operationally our focus lies. In order to be able to keep the doors of our churches open, we aim to improve our earned income to above £1 million. And this can come from different areas, such as our enterprises arm, which looks after champing, which is camping in churches, which we've coined, which is why it's trademarked. But also memberships, for instance, and specific church-based income where your help is instrumental. As well as welcoming people to discover the peace and quiet, architectural marvels and social history the churches offer, we need to showcase that they still play a role in the community, which is where events come in, weddings, baptisms, hire and rental fees. In the first instance, we hope that volunteers and supporters try to organise enough events to make the place come alive, and that is what you have been doing to help us for years now. This slide indicates where the money goes. Keep in mind that the figures shown incorporate staff wages. Many of our churches have very limited community around them, which makes fundraising quite challenging. So we try to raise unrestricted funds as much as possible, as this means that money is not tied to a particular church or project, which enables us to spend the money across all the churches where it's needed. Of course, some projects may involve restricted funds to help us reach a target amount for conservation work, or to match fund grants we may receive. So what are restricted funds? Those are grants or donations that require the funds to be used in a very specific way and for a specific purpose. That can be, for instance, somebody who cares a lot about organs and leaves a legacy saying this needs to be spent on organ repair. Unrestricted funds is money given to a non-profit organisation which is free to use as they see fit. Whilst we are best known for protecting historic churches at risk, what is less well known is the significant positive economic and social impact our work has on local communities across the country. How do we communicate, reward and recognise our volunteers? Well, if you've opted in, you will receive regular e-updates from your trust contacts. They're called LCO bulletins or community bulletins, and these come out roughly every quarter. As the newsletters are only sent out on a quarterly basis, social media is more and more the way to be informed on a more regular basis, and some LCOs have WhatsApp groups as a way of keeping in touch as well. It is important for us to be able to share with you what is happening because you are our ambassadors and you need to hear from us why we've made certain decisions. Then there's the internet pages for shared resources, on which you can find event packs, for instance. Church plan meetings are an opportunity for people to get involved to discuss what priorities are for the church for the next years. So that's not just staff and volunteers, but that's also local stakeholders to discuss what the community needs and what the church needs. Then there are occasional regional meetings, which gives you an opportunity to get in touch with other volunteers and talk about shared interests. We have an expenses policy, so please let your trust contact know if you'd like to use this. We firmly believe that everybody should be able to volunteer without being out of pocket. There's an annual survey that we send out to give you a chance to feedback what is going well and what isn't going well. And then there are the Volunteer and Community Supporter Awards, sponsored by the Marsh Charitable Trust, which are set for June during National Volunteers Week. Everybody can nominate anyone as long as they're a volunteer with the CCT, and the awards are about £500 to be spent in whatever way you'd like. People have been known to buy spring bulbs to plant. Others have been known to have a nice afternoon tea with volunteers. And some have bought a better vacuum cleaner to look after the church. So it really is up to you. The awards are held online. We used to hold them face to face, but however centrally we chose, it was always time consuming and very expensive for people from the southwest and Norfolk and the north to attend, and feedback has shown that people value regional face to face gatherings more and saving the money, not spending it on a large national gathering. Our vision is for historic churches to be enjoyed by everyone as places of heritage, culture, spirituality, and beauty, and for the significant contribution they make to communities, society, and the economy. We do this in our current strategy by a focus on conservation, communities, creativity, whilst being based in resilience and sustainability. Health and safety. We take our responsibility of looking after our volunteers and churches very seriously. Because of the diverse nature of our work and volunteer roles, there are some policies and procedures that it would be good for you to be aware of. You will find summaries and guidelines in the handbook, and you will also have access to general risk assessment. Please have a look at that and see how it might affect you. You will also have a building risk assessment and fire risk assessment to make you truly aware of what the risks might be with your volunteering role. Your personal safety overrides everything else. Although the church should not be left open and unattended, if an emergency occurs or you need to leave quickly, please do so and go to a safe space before contacting the emergency services in your trust contacts. Specific emergency procedures for your place of volunteering will be discussed in your site-specific induction. It is best practice to let someone else know you are volunteering and when to expect you back, a family member or a friend, and please discuss this with your CCT contact if you have any concerns. Not strictly linked to health and safety, but a policy that is of some interest is our GDPR policy and photography policy. We might ask you to fill in a photography form, which means that we can use photos of you on our social media. We're very, very keen on our social media to show the people behind the places and not just the buildings, because ultimately it's you who's making it possible for us to open them. Coming back to health and safety and risk assessments, our building and fire risk assessments are specific to every church and are updated regularly. We have common task risk assessments, and we'd like you to be aware of common hazards like uneven surface, bat droppings, the risks in cash handling. And of course, remember that our churches can be frightfully cold and you need to dress accordingly. We have specific events working group advice and materials on our website for you to have a look at. Please recognize that every event needs to be risk assessed. Safeguarding. We're committed to protecting both children under 18 and adults at risk who visit or become connected to us through the course of our work. And we believe that everyone we come into contact with, regardless of age, gender identity, disability, sexual orientation, or ethnic origin, has a right to be protected from all forms of harm, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. People working or volunteering for us, of course, also have this right. And we all have a part to play in keeping children and adults at risk safe. So training is a part of our duty of care, and this QR code that is shown will take you straight to that training. Otherwise, you can find a link on our website. The training should only take about half an hour and is followed by a quiz at the end. As I indicated, It's part of our duty of care to equip you with this information. This slide shows our safeguarding escalation procedure. It is available in your handbook and should be available in churches where there's a private space for volunteers and staff. Please have a look at it so that you know what to do. Our safeguarding team consists of Elizabeth Bell, Vicky Allen and Judith Patrick, with Elizabeth being our main safeguarding lead. Any concerns you may have, you should contact Elizabeth via safeguarding@thecct.org.uk. This poster should be visible in all of our churches where there's a private space with a notice board. Again, this QR code will take you straight to the training. The main thing is that the training will tell you to know what to look for and to know what to do. It is never up to you to action, it is just up to you to report. So thank you for helping us with that. We've come to the end of this video. I'd like to thank you so much for your interest in the Churches Conservation Trust. Without your passion, your enthusiasm, your skills, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So a few of the next steps you can expect. A place-specific induction, where we'll do an identity and address check. Of course, we may have already checked your references. We would need to get next of kin details so that we know who to contact in case anything happens to you. I've mentioned the photography disclaimer so that we can showcase the fantastic work that volunteers and community supporters do. Please read the volunteer handbook, which is available on the website, and undertake the safeguarding training. And if you have any queries that you feel you can't take up with your CCT contact, and I hope there's none like that, but volunteering@thecct.org.uk is a separate email box that is monitored by the National Lead for Volunteering and Community Engagement. Thank you for your time, and I hope you love volunteering with the Churches Conservation Trust.